Um, well, yeah, I would say that the moment at the kitchen table was definitely a low moment. Um, there was a few other low moments that would probably supersede it, but I don't know if we've time to mention them now. Um, I lost one of my brothers when he was 37 and I was 35. So probably the lowest moment was the phone call I got with that news. And the string obviously events that happened after that. Um, High moments um is so many. What comes to mind is always like the birth of my kitties when you open your eyes and you see this wonder looking at you and there is a an overwhelming um intense feeling that is just it's like all the joy in the world packed into one moment.
Hello there and welcome to another Coffee with Colm, and thanks indeed for joining. Delighted to let you know that my guest today, a good friend of mine for a long number of years now at this stage, Fiona Brennan. And Fiona has taken time out of her very busy schedule to pop in and say hello. Hi Fiona, pop in, say hi.
Hey,
Cheers us with your green
hi, Colm.
tea.
Good morning, bright and early morning, and cheers to you. I am on hot water and lemon. I won't say I'm on the hard stuff quite yet.
I love it. I love it. I think I'm on my fourth of the hard stuff already, and it's what time? It's early. Anyway, come here. Great to have you here. Thanks indeed for popping in. What does the mug say, by the way?
The mug says, "What would she do?"
Okay, I
And
suspect.
this is my go-to mug when I need to make decisions or whether I just need that motivation, inspiration. Um, I got it from a beautiful lady over in America called Tracy Litt, and that's her slogan. What would she do? And it's basically, who is she? She is future me. So when I'm trying to make a decision, it's like, okay, well, step out of where I am right now, step out of all the chaos of what all that thinking, and just like, quite simply, what would she do in this moment?
Wow.
And I just find that it's like I don't use it every day. It's I actually reserve it for when I actually need it. So when people see me, or when I say people, as in maybe somebody around the house sees me going with my mug, it's like, oh, she's on to something. But
That's
yeah,
wonderful. That's wonderful. I'm talking about diving straight in. I love that. I love that. Right.
yeah, yeah.
We'll step back into the shallow end for a little while, if that's okay, if you don't mind. So tell us, Fiona Brennan,
Masses, they say.
who, what, where are you based? What are you doing these days?
Who, what, where am I based? Well, so I'm a Cavan girl, very proud Cavan girl, and a sister to five brothers, the only girl, and the daughter of a publican. And I'm living currently in County Clare, making my way around the country, I think at this stage, it's fair to say, and living here with my three kids and husband. So his family's from Cavan as well. So we've kind of been on our own journey, I suppose, without the direct or local or close family support. So yeah, so we've landed here for now. As I say, I'm not sure I have ever found that spot where am I going to be buried? Do you know that? Where will you lie at the end of it? Like, so I haven't settled in that final spot yet. So we'll see. We'll see.
And I know you spend as much time as you can on the coast and sea swimming and all the rest. So living in Clare, that makes that somewhat easier than living in Cavan, I expect.
Yeah, I'm getting closer, Colin. Like, Cavan, Dublin, Tipperary, went abroad for a while, and now in Clare. So I'm edging my way closer. So I have a few ideas of where the next spot's going to bring me, but I'm 50 minutes drive, solid driving to Lahinch, which is the closest piece of water for me to go to. So yeah.
I was just going to say a piece of heaven right there, Lahinch. on the west coast, the wild Atlantic Way. It's absolutely one of my favorite places to be as well. So happy days. And come here, you just mentioned that you're edging closer and you're not quite sure where the next place is. Does himself know that there might be a next place? Is it a surprise?
Yeah, it's been mentioned in conversation. Yeah. It's just, yeah, he knows it's out there, like, so I think you just have to toddle along with me. I have a great plan, like, that sorts everybody out. So my whole thinking on it, Colm, is I'm not waiting for everybody to leave here, because, we all know the stories of the kids are not taking flight as early as we might have in our day. So it's fine. That's okay, because you can stay. I'm actually going to go. So I am even. I ain't waiting. So they can stay here.
I
So
love
that's my backup plan.
happy days, happy days. Yeah, and they can join you if they wish, but you're going anyway. Love
Yes,
that, yeah.
yes. Funnily, actually, because you mentioned that there, it's reminded me of I did your wigwam program. Gosh, was it 3, 4 years ago now? We did that fabulous um program, and one of the things was about the dinner table and where who would be at your dinner table when you're 80, or was it 85, something like that. But I remember saying in one of the sharings about that I wanted my, kids to be somewhere. So I wanted them to go off, to just go fly and explore the world and be somewhere so that I could go visit. And I don't know who said it to me. Maybe it was you, maybe it was Michelle or somebody else. But said, well, what about that you're somewhere and they're coming to visit you? And I was like, mm. So I actually think that was what set the seed.
Oh, lovely,
There you go.
lovely, lovely. Yeah, Wigwam, that was a program we sort of created, myself and Michelle Barry, during COVID, those COVID years. And Wigwam stood for Wonderfully Inspiring Goals Weekly Accountability Meeting. And you know what? It had its time and its place. I'm delighted we did it. It's in the past now. It's in the rearview mirror for all the right reasons. And but delighted that you remembered something from it. That sounds more like Shelley than it does me. So uh, thanks for remembering. Right, so you're based in County Clare. From memory, unless it's changed, you've got two professions at this moment in time. Is that right?
Yes, I am a project manager, construction project manager, and I am a business coach. So yeah, I'm a project manager by trade, mechanical engineer by degree, project manager by trade, and everything else in between after that. I suppose the business coaching developed from the fact that I had started my business in the first place. One led to the other. So yeah, so I worked in corporate for 16 odd more years, I'd say. 16 years in one particular place, a few years before that. So I did mechanical engineering, was never really a mechanical engineer though. Kind of did the study, understood it, did the exams, got the theory, all of that. And that, choosing that particular course came from a love of physics and maths when I was doing my Leaving Cert. And I suppose being the only daughter of a publican, and the tendency obviously was to work in the pub all the summers. And as you grew up, my mum obviously encouraged me to do as good as I could. So I did actually go to boarding school first. And that was her urging me to do as well as I could and get the best opportunity I could. So, get away from the distractions of working behind the bar and go to your studies. And then, was encouraged then to develop a career so that I could be independent. And I guess, she wanted me to have maybe what she didn't get to have. So yeah, I just followed my passion. My passion was physics, maths. So I literally remember browsing, the forms or the folder, the brochures of the colleges at the time, thinking, okay, what courses have physics and maths in it? That was how I found engineering as a thing. And I had initially put down electrical engineering in Galway because I really wanted to go to Galway. And my second choice then was Trinity in Dublin. And I didn't get enough points to go to Galway. And thank God I didn't get enough points to go to Galway, because I would have hated electrical engineering because that was what the course was. So when I went to Trinity, I actually had to do all of the subjects, all of the topics of engineering for the first year. And then you had a choice to go forward. So that was when I discovered I hated electrical engineering. So I loved civil, I loved mechanical, and ended up choosing mechanical, kind of guided by the professor that was there at the time and some friends that were doing mechanical. So kind of just,
let me butt in here for a second. That's
yeah,
fascinating, but a ton in that already. And I don't want to lose the magic moment if you don't mind. First of all, second choice Trinity. I mean, I love that. I love that. For those that don't know, Trinity College is held in very high esteem here on the island of Ireland. So the fact that second choice was Trinity. Second thing that came to mind was the universe conspiring. Thank God you didn't get Galway. The universe didn't want you in Galway for some reason and threw you into Trinity. God bless you. Your mother, I was thinking about what you said there, but your mother wanted the best for you. And I remember seeing somewhere on social that the only man who wants to see you do well as a man is your father. And the only woman who wants to see another woman do well really is their mother, right? Who wants to see them doing better than them. Okay. And, kudos to your mum for deciding that, as you said, she had a particular life and wanted a different life for you and encouraged and kicked you out of the nest. To go to
yes.
boarding school. So
Yeah, considering I was the only daughter, yeah, it was a brave thing for her to do, to kick me out. And the funny thing was that she gave me such a desire to do well, that I felt like I could do anything. So it was kind of like, ooh, what will I do? What could I do? Because like the world was my oyster in the brochure of the college books. But actually, deep down, she actually was hoping that I would, after leaving cert, do the commercial secretarial course like all my cousins were doing and get a job, local in Cavan Town afterwards. That's actually what she was hoping for. But I was like, no, I'm going off to Dublin now, and that's it. And so she gave me the wings and I literally ran with them.
I love it.
So it kind of, yeah, I won't say it backfired. She did want me to do, but secretly she still kind of hoped I'd kind of, get the job back
Stay
home.
close to home, I understand.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you say you started your own business. You were in corporate for a number of years, then you decided to start your own business and in project management, I think, as a contractor.
Yes,
And
yes.
then from that, you decided to become a business coach. Why did you make that decision?
So basically what happened was I started my own business. So when you're an employee and you move over to entrepreneurship, it is a big shocker. It's a big eye opener. It's like, okay, nobody told me about this. And when you're on, as I described it, as one side of the fence for so long and in the role I was in, I dealt with a lot of vendors and contractors constantly. So I would always be negotiating with them. I'd always be like, what's the deal you can do? Can you come in and run this? Can you do that? So it's constantly on like the employee side. When I literally moved over to their side of the fence, I saw everything from a completely different point of view. And it was so eye-opening. It literally like you cannot get the stuff in a book. Um, and it absolutely floored me. I went from the left-hand side of the fence being this really confident project manager, I guess with the backing of the company. They always had your back no matter what. If you messed up, it doesn't matter. The final book always stopped with them. When you go over then to the right side of the fence, hopping across, and I'm just saying right because I'm doing it here. It's a total different. It's all with you. You're 2 feet on the ground, book stops with you. So I found myself going to meetings saying yes to a construction project. They come up pretty much straight away for me. I went into that meeting and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I was like, little girl, back out of college, my first day on the job, and just, it was, yeah, I was
Isn't that
floored.
isn't that amazing? Because you'd been doing the exact same work for somebody
It was
else.
literally the exact same work. And I was even with one of the contractors. So it was like I was with a building contractor. He said, I've got this job. I need help. And I would have employed him in my job through, obviously, I wasn't paying him, but through the striker job, I would have employed him. The other side of the fence, it was like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this.
You know what? I had
Yeah.
exactly the same experience when I left the corporate job. I've heard it referred to as the fur-lined mousetrap. I think it's a wonderful
Yes.
description. And but I had exactly the same. I'd been running cafes for other people for almost 20 years. And the day I opened my own cafe door, 8 o'clock at one Monday morning, I was scared witless, absolutely scared witless, completely irrational. And you experienced the same thing. That's mad.
Oh, it was like literally I felt 16 again. Because it was 16 when I left Leave Cert and went up to Trinity. I remember just thinking like, I feel like I'm 16. I have this like 40-year-old face. I feel like I'm, like, as I discovered later through all the coaching work I've done or through all the self-development learning I've done, like it is your little girl on the inside is going like, we don't know if we can do this. That self-confidence. So it's because of that. And I muddled through it, pushed through it, figured it out. But it just started, it was the rocky foundation. The self-belief wasn't there. So therefore I wasn't charging properly. I was saying yes to loads of things, doubting myself. Let me have a go at this. Let me try it for you. We'll figure it out later. Just a whole year of just not trusting my ability. And add to that, then I'm managing 3 kids at home. Add to that, we had just moved house, which had its own story behind that. So I was there was a lot of leftover trauma from that, because it wasn't a move, it wasn't a desired move, so to speak. It had to happen. So I'm sitting on the kitchen table or at the kitchen table one day in the middle of July. All the kids are shoved into the sitting room, but they're fighting and screaming and roaring. I've been in trying to sort them out. I had said yes to all this work. I was doing all this work. I was completely stressed out. And I sat there and I started to cry. And I think I remember saying this is ridiculous because this time last year I had taken 6 weeks parental leave where I could actually just be with the kids. So here I am, they're on their summer, the so-called freedom, flexibility, working by yourself, and I can't spend a moment with them. And when they are with me, I'm just completely stressed up to high dose, shouting, roaring, it's all those things. And I remember breaking down the kitchen table and not knowing what to do. And I Googled, probably help. I don't know what I Googled. But what it fed up me on the page on the screen in front of me was straight into some sort of a coaching program. And when I read it, whatever words were on the screen, it was like, oh my God, yeah, I need this.
Wow,
This is
wow.
it. I need this.
That is that's fascinating. Fascinating story, and I don't believe that I knew all of that, that journey that you undertook. And again, we're back to the universe, as you say, what I was fed up on the screen when I Googled help. I love that. Was coaching, and it obviously made a difference in your world.
It did, but I'll just say, Colm, it took me, that was definitely July, because I remember it was thick in the summertime, and it was the following March before I actually said yes to that.
And what drove that delay?
I didn't know it was for me, and I didn't think it would make a difference. And probably the biggest thing was, how could I spend that money on myself?
Wow. Is that a mother thing or is that a business owner thing?
Uh, Probably a bit of both, but I had never actually spent that money on myself before. I'd never actually, invested like that. When I had set up the business, all I needed to do was, what did I buy? A printer. Because I had the laptop. They'd given me the laptop when I left the corporate job as a gift. So all I had needed was actually the printer. And I was set up, and I think an AutoCAD license, that was it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I didn't even have to invest money to set up the business. So all of a sudden, then there was this big chunky, 4-figure fee to
Sure.
learn something that was just going to be for me. It wasn't even like business, because I didn't see it as coaching school to become a coach. I saw it as teach yourself how to be more confident, believe in yourself, bring your vision to life, that sort of stuff. It was for me, nothing else.
Yeah,
And
well,
I didn't even know it was going to have any impact on my business. I didn't know what it was going to do. I just was drawn to it because I'd
Sure.
never heard of coaching before. So fast forward 6 months later, that January, I couldn't get out of bed. So this was July. I was at the kitchen table, bawling my eyes out. Obviously, I had to tidy myself up, saw the thing, thought, yeah, that looks good. Sent out an inquiry. Sometime later that week, I think I had a phone call with the director. We had a chat, sounded great, and I parked it. Uh, Maintained the struggle all the way through the rest of the summer. Nothing changed. It got worse. By the time I hit Christmas, I crashed, and January, I couldn't get out of bed. I was very sick, physically sick, but we all know where physical sickness comes from. And I didn't take on any work for January and February and probably into March because whatever I had on, I just finished off. I wasn't able to. I went to start seeing all these people. I went to an osteopath because I felt I had aches and pains in different places. I went to the doctor. I went to somebody else and somebody else. I was trying to figure out how do I get rid of the pain so I can get out of bed and function. And I think the very last one, I remember I was out to doctor surgery and the nurse came in. She had all these cards and she says, put out of a bunch of cards, put with the feelings that you're feeling to one side that are negative. I think I very much handed her back the full set and them all. But anyway, somewhere in that confusion, I think I got an email again. They were having an open day. The
Yeah.
course was restarting. The director was on my case. This is launching now again at the end of March. You think you want to come into it. And I don't know how I made the decision or how I was drawn, but had the conversation with the husband. And I just said, I don't know why, but I feel I need to do this.
Well, do you know what? Fascinating. And again, thanks for sharing. This season of Coffee with Colm is all about mental well-being and mental resilience. And as I said, I didn't know the full extent of that story. So thanks for sharing because, as I said to you just before we pressed record on this episode will find the ears that it needs to find. That's not our job. Our job is to simply record it and put it out there. The universe will take it to the ears that need to hear it. So if you're hearing this and it's speaking to you, well, then reach out to Fiona and she'll
I
absolutely.
haven't actually shared that really before, Colm.
Well, thank you for sharing it here. A couple of things come to mind. Your business can never outgrow you. It's a phrase I stumbled across years ago. It's so true. Business can never outgrow you, and you described it perfectly. Perfectly proficient as a project manager for somebody else, and then completely rabbit in the headlights when you were doing it for yourself, which is just mad. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You've spoken about feelings of not being confident and not knowing what to charge or feeling you're worth charging enough. So we're back to your business can never outgrow you. You got to, and that's why when you did that course, it was all about you because your business can never outgrow you. You got to grow. I've got to grow first, and our businesses follow suit. Simple as. But many people don't understand that, and it causes all sorts of challenges. You said also earlier, by the way, at the time I couldn't get a book. I couldn't find a book where this stuff is written, right? And in fact, I thought to myself, well, maybe Fiona Brennan needs to write that book. Maybe that's what's coming next. So it's working for you now, albeit you're still.
Well, can I just say that when I said yes to that, because this is an important piece as well, for anyone listening, and this is the important piece of when you make a decision that's for you. That particular week, the course started with a weekend, and I had to travel to Galway, and it was a Saturday morning, and I was very sick, physically sick the day before. I think I had a throat infection. I had all the things, right? And it took me all my strength not to email the guy that night to say, I actually am not going to make it up to this course. So my hands literally I didn't allow them to do that. I got up, I drove to Galway, I sat in the room, but I was not physically there. I was just sat there. And but at some point in that call, in that day, or was it the next day, something was said by the teacher, and whatever it was about the power of belief in yourself or something that made me sit up. And when I went home that evening, everything changed. I was feeling better. I was feeling like, okay, not 100% better, but I was definitely so much more energetic. So all the aches and pains, all the diagnoses, like literally just started to go. The other thing I just want to share this because it's tied into that same whole weekend. On day 2, there was a lady there, she beautiful lady, and she was just like so buzzing. And I remember at one stage, I think near the end of day 1, I just said, okay, Sharon, what do you want? How are you? How are you nice? Right. And she told me about her meditation, which by the way, I'd never really heard of before. I was very cocooned in a very fur-lined mousetrap for so long. And I do this and I do that. What's she doing? What is this whole other life? And then she says, you know what? I'll recommend you a book. I'm actually going to bring you in the name and order tomorrow, and you're going to get it and read it. And I ordered it straight away. And that book got me back out of bed and back to the Fiona that I always was.
Right.
And that book is Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod.
Miracle Morning
By Hal Elrod.
by Hal Elrod. Okay, I'll check it out.
And it was the first personal development book I ever read.
Wow. And you haven't stopped since?
I haven't stopped since. And I took a number of quotations from the book, and they're actually still print. I typed them out and I print them out, and it's still up there because it's my guiding light for everything that has happened since then. Coaching I went to do was on myself. I ended up realizing that when I saw the impact the coaching had on my business, as well as myself, my family life changed, everything changed. The business took off. That was 2018. By the end of 2019, like I had my best year in business. And when I sat back and was like, what just happened there? I realized the work I'd done on myself had impacted my business. I said, well, I've got to share this.
I love it. And
I can't keep this to myself.
And
that's what led to the coaching business.
Absolutely fantastic. Fantastic. Well, I love connecting the dots with people because we can't connect the dots forward, but we can always connect the dots back as to what we're doing today, back to something that happened in the past, some moment or some person or some event. So delighted. And it's all going well for you at this moment in time?
Yes, it's been a roller coaster. I will not lie. I became an entrepreneur in 2017. We are now 2024, so I'm going so that's 7 years on the trot, as they say. Disrupted heavily by COVID, like everyone was. So just when, as I said, I went into the end of 2019, like with a great solid year, and then it all crashed, obviously, in 2020 because projects, construction sites all closed down. But that was when I used that opportunity to develop the coaching business. I had started to kind of play with it, but I hadn't been given it the time because I was so busy. And I thought, ooh, I wonder if I could just get a batch of time. Maybe if some projects just finished up quicker than I thought, that would be great. And then bam, 16th of March comes and everything was like, well, I wasn't looking for it, but thank you.
So ladies and gentlemen, Fiona Brennan caused COVID. She caused it.
Yeah, so I'll use that. So being a business owner of 2 businesses, right? Has its like challenges. So there I am with project management, well established at this stage. It did take a crash, but then it started to come back online. Here I am having then spent the whole 2020 developing the coaching business. So by the time 2021, halfway, second half of 2021 comes, I've got 2 businesses and I'm here trying to wear 2 hats. And it's been a roller coaster of trying to figure out what that looks like, because that was a whole other personal challenge of which am I? Can I be both? Should I just be one? Can I combine the 2? Oh my God.
Have you come to a conclusion around that question yet?
Yes.
Go on.
Yes. And literally it has only been this year. So it has taken this time. Like, I am just me. Sorry, I am not just me, I am me. And I help you bring a vision to life, whether that be through the construction of your business or the reconstruction of your business physically or home, or it's your passion for business concept, the theory, or it's whatever you want for yourself and the life that surrounds your business. So
Oh,
it's the same ethos for both businesses. You get me in both.
I love it.
Which one do you
Yeah.
want? And the jam of it has been that at one point this year I was working from a business coaching point of view with a client, and they actually needed some work from a project management point of view. So I was able to provide both services to the one. And
It's
I
really
was like,
interesting to hear you describe it like that. That's fantastic clarity. And I love clarity. But it's almost like you've got an umbrella brand here and it's all about, helping people bring their vision to life. But you've got currently two strands, and there might be a third strand and a fourth strand and a fifth strand in time. We don't know, but time will tell. Come here, fabulous talking to you, and thanks indeed for sharing all of that. Two quick questions, and then we're going to wrap this up because we could be here all day. Um, uh, First question is a low moment, and perhaps we've already touched that, but maybe we haven't. A really dark moment for you. And the second question then is a highlight that you're willing to share.
well, yeah, I would say that the moment at the kitchen table was definitely a low moment. Um, there was a few other low moments that would probably supersede it, but I don't know if we have time to mention them now. Um, I lost one of my brothers when he was 37 and I was 35. So probably the lowest moment was the phone call I got with that news. And the string obviously events that happened after that. Um, High moment is so many. What comes to mind is always like the birth of my kiddies, when you open your eyes and you see this wonder looking at you, and there is an overwhelming intense feeling that is just, it's like all the joy in the world packed into one moment. That's just nobody. Yeah,
That
just
is that
yeah.
is that's truly beautiful. That's truly beautiful. I'm sorry for the loss of your brother. I didn't know that either. And thanks for sharing that. And again, the universe will take this episode to the ears that need to hear it. And you may have a reach out at some point, whether now or in the future. But thanks for sharing that. But that moment, the way you described the birth of your kiddies there, just beautiful. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Thank you, Colm, for
Right, we're going to wrap this up and then stay there because you're getting the last words. Think of something to say. Folks, wasn't that just fantastic? Fantastic. Lovely to have you here, and thanks for joining me for this week's Coffee with Colm episode with Fiona Brennan. Please consider what's been shared here today and apply it into your thinking for this next week, and then make sure you come back next week. We'll have another coffee together and we'll meet another guest. But in the meantime, get some good coffee for sure. Get some fresh air and R&R. If you spend too much time with other people, please take some time out and get to know yourself a little. Conversely, if you spend too much time alone, please go out and meet some people. And then when the time is right, and only when the time is right, get your head back in the game, get organised for the week ahead, get stuck in, make next week count. And I'll see you here this time next week for another Coffee with Colm. Slaunch it. But in the meantime, last word, Fiona Brennan.
My quotation is, there's nothing you cannot do. You just need to decide.